90 words, 50, 60 seconds. On a cold autumn night, the roar of motorcycles faded as the last biker rolled into a roadside bar on the edge of town. The warm yellow lights inside spilled onto the cracked pavement. Then the door creaked open again. A small black girl, no older than 10, stood there clutching a faded pink backpack. Her eyes darted to the big men in leather jackets as she whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "Please, hide me." The entire bar fell silent. None of them yet knew the secret she carried. The town of Ashbrook had always been a place where outsiders felt they were being watched. The biker group that gathered at the old bar was rough in appearance, but mostly kept to themselves. Former soldiers, truckers, and mechanics who found brotherhood in the open road. That night had begun like any other, with the clatter of pool balls and the smell of fried food drifting from the kitchen. Most of the men had noticed the girl before she even spoke. Her shoes were worn thin, her sweatshirt was torn at the elbow, and her backpack hung loosely from one strap. Behind her, in the glow of the parking lot light, no one else stood. No adult, no car. She seemed to have run all the way there. One of the bikers, a heavy-set man named Hank, who usually sat near the door, was the first to crouch down to her level. But before he could speak, the girl shook her head, clutching her backpack even tighter, and said only, "Please, don't let him find me." There was something in her tone, a mixture of fear and exhaustion, that made even the toughest of the bikers glance at one another. They were used to dealing with drunks, bar fights, and even storms on the road. But this was different. As the night air seeped through the open door, the group sensed that whatever had driven this child to their doorstep was serious. In the corner, a few men exchanged low whispers, wondering where her father was, what she might be running from. None of them yet realized that the answer to that question, and the reason for her desperate flight, was sitting quietly in the very backpack she wouldn't let go of. The bikers had a rough reputation in town, but beneath the tattoos and leather was a deep-seated loyalty to one another and, when it mattered, to those who couldn't protect themselves. Hank gently invited the girl inside, offering her a seat near the wood-burning stove. She didn't speak much. She only kept one hand firmly on the backpack strap, as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Outside, the wind picked up, and the neon sign above the bar flickered. The men exchanged glances. No one wanted to pry too quickly, but everyone felt the weight of her presence. Finally, a younger biker named Miguel knelt beside her. It said softly that no one could help her unless they understood what she needed protection from. The girl looked up at him with wide eyes and, after a long pause, whispered that her father was coming for her. She said it in a way that made the hair on the back of their necks stand up. She didn't say why. She didn't cry. She stared at the floor, clutching the backpack. In that moment, the bikers felt the unspoken history of the town pressing in, years of casual prejudice that had led some people to believe they could do as they pleased to those with less power. Several of the bikers had faced it themselves in different forms. They recognized the look in her eyes. One of the older bikers went to the door, peering out into the dark lot as if expecting headlights to crest the hill. Another locked the door. The tension grew as minutes passed like hours. The girl still wouldn't let anyone take the backpack. When Hank gently offered to set it on the table to give her arms a rest, she pulled it back sharply. That made everyone more uneasy. In the corner, a few of the bikers muttered about whether they should call someone, maybe the sheriff, but others weren't. Sure, if the authorities would be as quick to protect a scared black girl against a man who might be well-connected in town. What united them all was the silent, understanding that for now, she was their responsibility. The girl finally explained in a halting voice that her father had found himself in trouble and that he blamed her for something that wasn't her fault. She wouldn't say more, but she kept repeating that he couldn't find her. The weight of her words settled over the group like a storm cloud. They didn't know yet what her father had done, or what she carried in that bag, but they knew she believed it was the reason she couldn't go home. It was well past midnight when the headlights finally appeared outside. A truck slowed in the gravel lot, then idled with its engine running. The girl shrank back in her chair, clutching the backpack so tightly that her knuckles went white. The bikers stepped between her and the door without a word. They didn't know the whole story, but they knew enough to be concerned. As the man from the truck got out and strode toward the bar, his heavy boots crunching the gravel, Hank reached over and gently placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. He said nothing, but the gesture made her loosen her grip just enough for the bag to slip slightly. Something hard shifted inside it with a dull thud. Hank and Miguel exchanged a look. With the girl's hesitant nod, they finally unzipped the backpack. Inside was a small, battered box taped on all sides. Beneath it were a few crumpled papers and an old photograph of the girl and her mother. The girl whispered that her father wanted the box back, that it was the only thing her mother had left her before she passed away. She said he'd tried to take it from her, saying it didn't belong to her anymore. Hank carefully lifted the box, feeling the weight of it. It was heavy, not with money but with keepsakes, letters, a bracelet, and a folded birth certificate that proved something her father didn't want anyone to see, that he was not her biological parent. The truth settled in the room. The man outside wasn't there to protect her. He was there to claim something that tied the girl to her late mother and to a past he wanted to erase. The bikers closed the bag, moved it behind the bar, and braced themselves as the man pounded on the door. The confrontation that followed was tense but brief. When the door opened, the bikers stood shoulder to shoulder. The man demanded the girl and the bag. They refused. The sheriff was called that night by the bikers themselves and arrived in time to witness the scene. The girl stayed inside, shielded by the people who had chosen to protect her. In the following days, the truth came out. The man's attempt to claim the girl's belongings was exposed as part of a bitter dispute over her late mother's estate. The papers in the box proved that he had no legal right to her or to the keepsakes her mother had left. The bikers, once seen as outsiders and troublemakers, became unexpected guardians in the eyes of the community. The girl was placed in the care of relatives her mother had trusted, people who would protect her and keep her safe. Long after the headlines faded, the memory of that night lingered in the minds of everyone who had been there. It wasn't just a story about a frightened child and a group of rough-edged men who chose to do the right thing. It was a reminder of how often people judge others by appearances, whether it's a little girl running into a bar at night or a group of bikers in leather jackets, and how easily prejudice can close our eyes to the truth. That night in Ashbrook, a group of men many had written off as troublemakers became protectors, and a frightened girl learned that sometimes the people you least expect will stand up for you when it matters most. In the end, the question left behind for everyone who heard the story was simple yet profound. How many times have we overlooked the humanity in those who don't look or live like us? And what would change if we stopped judging so quickly?